Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today I want to have a bit of a discussion regarding possible race packs in Warhammer 3, mainly because we normally receive a few race packs per game in the Warhammer series. Though it's very likely that the third and final game of the series could indeed implement more races. So let's take the time in this video to check out some of the possible races and go over to see if they actually stand a chance to be implemented. Before anything, there's not really much point to talk about the Ogre Kingdoms or the Chaos Dwarfs. I honestly believe they'll make their appearance sooner or later, as the Darklands already heavily feature in Warhammer 2, and the Ogre Kingdoms are in a territory between Cathay and Kislev. So honestly, it's only just a matter of time. So with that, let's move on. We'll of course first talk about the Dogs of War. You see, the Dogs of War are a much requested race to join the Total War Warhammer universe. Not only does the army book represent nations such as Talia, Estalia and the Border Princes, but has a mercenary system that was implemented on the tabletop, which many people are hoping to see implemented in Total War. In all honesty, the reason why we're talking about this race first is because I believe it's only a matter of time until we can see them. I know a lot of people have stated that the best time would have been through Warhammer 1 or Warhammer 2, as of course they're areas that they are most known to work through. Of course the main countries or the various different settlements in Lustria have already been implemented. But the reason why we haven't seen the Dogs of War, at least in my opinion, is because of the mercenary system. Many races and factions, which could potentially be DLC, also work for the Dogs of War. It would make no sense to add in the Dogs of War as a playable faction without adding in the Ogre units, Halfling units and so on, which obviously would benefit Creative Assembly if they got implemented post-release of all the other respective races, or else modders would just easily implement the other races and factions through 1 or 2 units. I know this might not be the best argument for some, but I truly believe the Dogs of War will probably be a race pack in the near future. Whilst we're already on the topic of the Halflings, we might as well talk about them now. I don't think the Halflings will ever be introduced in their own race pack, but it does make sense as a mini race pack of sorts. As of course, the large majority of the Halflings established in the Warhammer Fantasy universe are members of the Empire. It doesn't really make sense to do a DLC introducing 4 legendary lords and a full complete roster, but it does make sense to add in 1 legendary lord and a decent amount of troops to fill out the moot. And yes, I see the irony of calling it a mini DLC, but I think something like that would be justifiable, and it would add in a little bit more flavor to the Empire's roster. My only concern is the eventual changing of the Empire into the Lustria Bull 2.0, but then again it's kinda expected considering how packed in the Empire truly is. And now let's talk about Araby. And yes, I am aware that I am very much beating the dead horse with Araby, but until Creative Assembly outright state that it's never going to happen, remember their last statement that there was no plan currently for Araby, then I will continue to talk about them. While in all honesty I had lost hope for Araby a long time ago, it's important to note that the announcement of Warhammer 3 brought in Cathay, a race and faction that many of us were hoping for but were not expecting, as obviously there was not that much lore, and it's in a part of the Warhammer world that many of us thought we were never going to explore. Araby serves as a human nation which could be reworked in lore to be a true neutral human nation. An army which would be focused around skirmish combat, as obviously Araby is known to have a lot of very fast horses, very much on par as to the horses of Ulthuan. The fact is, yes, Araby right now, like the rest of the Southlands, is very crowded. However, if we do end up with a proper full world map, or as close to one as possible, it's very likely that we'll see the Southlands expanded upon once again to near enough the levels of that of the Eye of the Vortex. Only if this happens would Araby be a justifiable replacement, as of course then legendary lords could be moved around a little bit, or move to more lore-friendly locations. CA have of course stated that they'll possibly think about moving Tretch around, so who's to say that Ark the Black can't be moved to a more lore-friendly location for him, and a little bit further away from Araby itself. Next we'll talk about the Kingdom of Ind, a relatively minor race in Warhammer Fantasy lore, but could be a possibility in Total War Warhammer 3. The reason why I state this is because Ind is a rather large landmass, which is connected directly to the Mountains of Morn, the area owned by the Ogre Kingdoms and of course Grand Cathay itself. Such a large area would be an awful shame if it was just populated by Empire clones. There's enough lore to go around to give them a very basic framework, a people known for trade with a pantheon of many gods, and of course the famous Tiger Beastmen of Ind. It's not a lot of lore, but it's very much on par as to what Cathay had prior to its official confirmation. We're going to talk about two minor races at once, as they're both often associated with chaos. The Kurgans and the Snake Men of Koresh, both of them bordering the lands of Grand Cathay. I've seen many people posting requests on the forums, Reddit and so on regarding these two races as potential race packs for the future. However, I'm going to be perfectly honest, from a lore perspective, they'd probably be best served as DLC. Rather than being established as their own specific races, they could easily be implemented towards the Chaos Forces, more specifically that of Chaos Undivided. There are many different Kurgan tribes, each associated with their own respective Chaos God, so this could be a way to link up the Kurgans with the Warriors of Chaos and give them more of an undivided approach. I'm very much still expecting for us to have a undivided force in the form of a few legendary lords, so this might work out very well for that. The same could also be said about the Snake Men of Koresh. Not much is really known about them, but their territories are directly connected to Grand Cathay, so it's very possible it could be featured in Warhammer 3's map. What little lore we have about them does associate them with Chaos, so they might be better yet served as units for the Chaos factions, a way to bridge the different areas around the Warhammer world, but also introduce something truly different. Think about this in the same way as how the Famir were introduced for Norska, where I honestly believe that if the Famir did not get their own playable faction, but rather became a minor installment for another one, then it's likely the same thing would happen for the Snake Men. The lore does directly link them to Chaos, as I said, usually around the Beastmen centric stuff, so it could be possible that the Snake Men could be introduced for the Beastmen as a form of aquatic style units. Last and not least, we have Nippon, a isolationist nation in the very far east of the Warhammer Fantasy world. Like the other races we've discussed here, they have lore, not a lot of it, but they do have some lore. The main thing that works to their favor is the fact that they also had a decent number of minis implemented. Sure, it's not a full army list, but it's something that does help flesh out a roster. This is the one that I'm not too sure about, and it's not because of their lore and so on. They have always been generally well requested by the fanbase. I believe the only way we can actually know about Nippon is if we see their landmass implemented into Warhammer 3. If it's the case that it does show up, then it's very likely that they could be a potential race pack of the future. That being said, we might not even truly know, as of course, recently they've been adding more and more to playable maps. We've seen this happen in the Mortal Empires, and we've seen this happen in Three Kingdoms. So very early on in Warhammer 3's lifespan, we could even be there without Nippon. I know many people have been clamoring for the Hobgoblins. It's an interesting fact, in all honesty, as the Hobgoblins were never too popular on the tabletop. Bear in mind that the Hobgoblins served more as slaves to the Chaos Dwarfs more than anything. Which is why I also believe that we will see Hobgoblins eventually, but in the form of an addition to the Chaos Dwarfs. not only in units, but possible legendary lords and maybe even a legendary hero or two. There are obviously some other races such as Albion and the Amazons, but I honestly feel that out of all the remaining races and factions, it's likely that they will have the least of a chance to be officially implemented. Out of all the races we've discussed in this video, of course the Dogs of War, the Chaos Dwarfs and the Ogre Kingdoms have the biggest chance to be implemented, as Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 1 both had 3 different Racepack DLCs associated with them. Yes, Norsca is a Warhammer 2 race, but were only playable in Warhammer 1. But as we've discussed, we already have the potential for certain new race packs or even a mini race pack. And to be honest, I think the Creative Assembly would probably look at the possibility for this, as they will probably want to milk as much DLC as possible. And if we look towards the already established races and factions in the Total War Warhammer series, many of them are near enough complete at this point, barring missing characters mostly, but units themselves, yeah, it's pretty much done. There are a few missing units here and there, possibly as a DLC, but that's pretty much it. So if they want to keep milking the franchise, they'll have to start looking towards minor races and make them into official races. Or at least that's my logic behind it, as especially if we look towards Warhammer 2, which I believe had around a 4-year lifespan. They'll probably want to have Warhammer 3 having a similar one at that too. More race packs could be a way to increase the longevity of the game by keeping things fresh with more and more races. But these are just my 2 cents regarding the matter. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.